Hello everyone, thanks for checking out my video. Welcome to my channel, Jersey Shore Pondscapes Videos. My name is Chris, and as usual we are talking all about koi ponds, waterfalls, water gardens, pond filtration, pond plants, just about everything you name it, okay? So today's video, we're going to be talking back about constructing a pond. We're going to be talking specifically about building a pond on a piece of ground that's on a slope, right, or into a hill. All right. Sometimes, you know, I go to somebody's house and we find a nice, flat, perfect piece of ground. Sometimes there's a little pitch on it, right? Sometimes what appears to be a little bit of a pitch actually is a lot, okay? It can be deceiving sometimes. There's times, you know, when I'll take my laser, my level, and I'll check you know, the ground, the level of the ground, and I'll put my laser up on one end and then bring it down on the other end thinking, it might be like a 5-6 inch difference, and we could be like a foot or more. It's a little deceiving sometimes, okay? So how do we accommodate for this when we're building a pond, right? Because we don't want to build a pond right, that's not level, all right? Water will not be on a slant. Your water level in the pond is always going to be perfectly level, okay? So sometimes having a pond built where it's not perfectly level, or your rock work and your liner can lead to a lot of problems. It can be a little unsightly, okay? I've seen ponds, you know, that some people have built that, you know, one side of the pond the water is overflowing, and the other side of the pond, you know, there's 6-8 inches of liner showing, all right? So, you know, aesthetically, to make it look nice, we want to avoid that, all right? So I mean, I use a laser. Lasers are amazing. They're, you know, they're accurate within like a 1/4 inch over like 300 feet, okay? But, you know, the average person, right, is not going to go out and spend, you know, $500, $600, $700 on a laser. But a piece of string with a little line level on top is really cheap and easy, all right? There's also, I had, my father was in construction. He was a builder. He built homes. And we had a mason building this huge house one day, and he used a water level with rubber tubing. Okay, he'd bring the water tubing up on one side, a piece of tubing, and he'd run it across the foundation, across the footing, up the other side, and he filled it with water, and the water level on one end of the tube to the other level of the tube was dead on. And he built the whole house like that, the foundation of the house, right? It's amazing. So, you know, you don't need a $500, $600, $700 laser, right, to do your levels. A nice, I mean, for years, for a long time, I used a piece of string, tie it really tight across the pond, and get your little line level that just hooks right onto the string, and get your levels like that, all right? So, different ideas, all right? However, okay, for me, I look at ponds built on a slope two different ways, okay? If we have a really big grade difference, okay, from one end to the other, we need to figure out what we want to accomplish with this pond. You know, if it's building on a little slope, we can kind of find out what our slope is from one end to the other. Like, what's the difference? Is the drop, you know, a foot? Okay, is it 1.5 feet? All right, and try to find a middle ground. All right, let's make our water level the middle ground. So in the back of the pond, instead of having a wall, you know, 1.5 feet high, right, it may only be, you know, 6-8 inches, and that's not bad, right? That's pretty easy to compensate for. The front of the pond, we'd also have a wall 6-8 inches. But what we can do in the front of the pond that's lower, we can take the dirt that we dig out of the pond and spread it across the front. So we can basically build the front up 6-8 inches and then dig into the back 6-8 inches or whatever we need to do to get that middle ground. And it's a lot less harsh, and it's pretty easy to do because you're going to have the dirt to do that with. Okay. Other things that could be done is to basically take our elevation grade difference, okay, and take your low spot and level the entire area off at that level. Build a little retaining wall that foot and a half back behind the pond, right? And now you have a level playing surface all in the front to build your pond, okay? With a little retaining wall toward the back, okay? So that's another idea, all right? Now, if we are building into a hill, right, a big hill, that works as well. All right, the issue that we have here, if we're looking to build a waterfall, that can be advantageous, right? We have a hill to build the waterfall on, which is really nice. However, you have to be very careful that once you build your pond to this hill, if you have a heavy rain or in time, that the dirt is not washing down this hill into the pond, or any rocks or walls or whatever collapse into the pond. Okay, so we have to be structurally sound when we're building back into a large hill. Okay. Definitely doable. There's advantages and disadvantages, no matter what we do. But I want to show you some pictures here and talk to you about, these couple different ponds we did and how I went about building them, okay? What the approach was to the design into these ponds, right? So the first pond here is actually a pond that I built originally. Well, there was a pond there originally, and about 15 years ago, maybe more, actually closer to 20 years ago, we ripped out the original pond, which was just a small pond here in front of this deck. As her fish were growing and getting bigger, she wanted to make the pond bigger. So almost 20 years ago, we ripped it out and we built this, okay? And what I did here was basically I built it into the hill with a longer stream coming down that had a drop down into the pond, which I had built level on the bottom, okay? So you can see, we had one grade, we went up with a wall, and then we did a spillway with the stream coming down the hill that way. Now, where I went up into this stream, where I built the rock up for the drop for the stream, if you notice, the sides of the ponds are all tapered as well. So I brought the rock work and the liner up all the way to the top of my dirt, okay, on both sides. So none of the dirt or anything will wash down into the pond. So that pond remained for several years, and the homeowner there loved the pond, and the fish continued to grow, and she just loved the pond so much that she wanted to make it bigger, right? Really make something here. So we ripped it out. I would say this is almost 10 years ago. About 10 years ago, we ripped it out and we rebuilt this new one, which was several times the size. To do this now, we eliminated the stream and we made this big waterfall into the hill. The issue was we still continued to have this big grade that came down off of her deck. So what we ended up doing was we took all the rock out of the original pond and we built a retaining wall on the bottom, on the side over here, that held the dirt up, and it gave me basically, I would say it's close to 2.5, 3 foot high. And then we worked our grade straight in off of that to where the waterfall was, and then we went up with the waterfall. So that was basically a retaining wall built on one side to bring the dirt up and level this whole area off. And we used the excess dirt that came out of the pond behind the retaining wall to support and build up this whole level. Okay, so this pond is awesome. This came out really well, and you can see all the pictures here. Very cool. The filter system, there's 2 4-inch bottom drains in this pond. There's a skimmer in this pond, and all the 2 bottom drains are gravity fed into one filter tank under her deck, and the skimmer is gravity fed with a 4-inch pipe as well into another tank under her shed. And then we have all the pumps and the UV light. There's one pump and a UV light connected to that, returning back to the waterfall. So this was definitely a very cool project, and it's a beautiful pond. She loves it. Her fish are growing and growing and getting bigger and bigger, and that was a neat project. Okay, so my next one here is another pond that I was called in to rip out. Well, we were called in to fix, or the homeowners had a lot of problems with this pond, and they needed it all redone. And we basically decided, let's just rip it out and rebuild it. The original pond was built into a hill that every time it rained, they had all kinds of mud and dirt and mulch and stuff washing down into this pond. So we ripped it all out, and we put in a whole new pond. What we did here is we had a level in the front by the patio to work with that we built back into the hill. We built a large waterfall, and then if you see on the sides of this pond, on either side, this side over here, we did a retaining wall so high off of the pond. We built the rock up out of the water so high. We did a little spillway on that side, and then we went back a few feet off of that, and then we built a retaining wall up behind it. And in the area between the little waterfall spillway and the retaining wall, there's like a hosta plant, a couple little plants, flowers she puts in there. So we have a small retaining wall on that side, halfway up of our elevation. Okay, so our spillway took half of the elevation that we needed to cover, and then we went back and built another wall behind it. So it kind of made it in steps. It's a little subtle. The opposite end of the pond here, we basically, we did a big wall that kind of wrapped around, and it came over the side toward the shed. Okay, so we kind of blended things in. So yeah, there's walls there, but it's just not like big big walls of rock, right? It's kind of naturalized into the elevation of the ground behind it. And then here's a large waterfall that basically took up most of the whole back of the pond. It is, pretty high. It's, got to be a good, 4 or 5 feet high. And it's all done out of concrete and stuff, so it's all supported really well. And the original pond liner, okay, comes all the way up to the top. All right, so there is no dirt that's going to run over that liner from the top of the waterfall and run down into the pond. All the rock work, all the walls on the side are all supported with liner and landscape fabric behind it to hold back all the dirt and mud and everything else. Okay, now there's another pond here that was built on a slope. Okay, now this pond I probably built 25 years ago. All right, it was actually one of the first ponds I built on my own. And this backyard did have a slope on it. So what we did was we took that middle ground, right? We built halfway into the back and built up the front halfway. All right, so you can see the dirt that spread around the front of this pond was to bring the level of the ground up to make the pond level toward the back. Okay, so you can kind of see how that works. This pond, like I said, is at least 25 years old right now, and the original homeowners moved away. There's new people in there now, and I still service and open and close this pond every year, and it's still going strong and looking great. So what's amazing is these two yellow gold thread cypresses that are behind this pond. I actually transplanted those two trees from a different part of their property to put back there. And now those things are, 25 feet high. It's pretty amazing now. And this pond didn't really utilize, a big waterfall. They didn't want a big waterfall. They just wanted a little stream, which I kind of wrapped around the side of the one tree here to make it look like it's just coming from around the tree and down into the pond. Just a small little water feature for a little sound. Okay, so that's that one. The next pond here, this is going to be a real extreme case of building a pond into a hill. All right, now this property, the back of this house, there's a large deck, the gazebo. But off of the deck, it basically was a piece of ground, maybe 8-10 feet, maybe. And then it went up this big hill, okay? There was no other spot in this backyard to put this pond where the homeowner would be able to go out and enjoy it and view it from the house, other than right there, right? We decided that right off the deck there would be the best spot for it, but we have this big hill. So this became a rather extensive project to build not only the pond, but all these retaining walls here, okay? You can see there's a high elevation here. So what we did is we broke the elevation up into two different levels, okay? So we had two different retaining walls. And we had to work with our lowest level in front of the deck as far as the pond, because we didn't want to build up off of the deck, right? We wanted the pond to be down off of the deck and not built up, too high. So we took our lowest level and we went in. All right, and then we leveled that whole area and then built our retaining walls up there, and they did all kinds of planting and flowers and stuff there, okay? So, building ponds into hills or slopes can be challenging, right? It's something that we have to really think about as far as design, and make it structurally sound so that all the dirt doesn't wash down into the pond, yet the pond is structurally supported and it's nice and strong, okay? So there's a lot to think about here, okay? I have a couple other pictures up here, some other examples of some of the jobs we've done, building waterfalls into the hills. Again, the key with going into a hill, all right, is to bring that pond liner up all the way, all right? We don't want our hill top elevation to be here on top of the hill and bring our liner up this high, all right? And then this is all dirt and rock, because all this dirt's going to come through the rock and going to come right down. This liner has to come all the way up to the top, all right, to hold back all that dirt and all that mud. And we have to be able to also think about the fact that you have a lot of water in a rain coming down into this hole, okay? So we have to be concerned that the dirt all right, underneath the pond, you know, in the ground, is going to be able to absorb water if there's heavy rains. Okay, if it's very heavy clay soil, all that water is going to come down that hill and it's going to go under that pond, and it could, you know, float your pond liner. All right, so doing some drainage under a pond may be something that you might have to consider as well. Now, I'm going to be doing another video on how to do that. All right, how to put drains under the pond. You know, we'll get all into that in another video, but you know, it's definitely something to consider, right? You're building a pond in a hole. All right. If there's a slope on your ground, right, and you build into that slope, maybe find that middle ground where you're digging halfway in the back and building halfway up the front. Okay. We have the ability to scape the dirt around the front and sides of the pond so that any excess water can run off. You may have some water coming down the hill from the back, okay, but anything around and the sides and the front of the pond can run off and run out. All right, but again, we have to take in mind, right, keep in mind, any water coming down that slope is heading towards your pond. All right, so either be able to divert it on the top and run it around, or if the water comes underneath the pond, what are we going to do to alleviate that? All right, generally speaking, 9 times out of 10, if your ground can absorb that water fairly quickly, rapidly, okay, which most of the time you're fine. It's not an issue. But I have built ponds in some areas where the ground is very thick, heavy clay, all right? That is going to hold water, all right? So there can be issues, all right? So definitely, you know, check out the other video I'm going to be doing soon about, you know, drainage under the ponds, okay? Okay, so yeah, some other pictures, some other examples here, some stuff that we've done. A hill can be really advantageous for building waterfalls, right? I have times where people ask me to come and build a pond, and you know, I want a big, beautiful waterfall, and then they have a flat piece of ground. And sometimes building a big waterfall on a flat piece of ground can look a little awkward, right? I mean, the waterfall itself can look really nice, but you know, and generally what we do is take all the dirt that we dig out of the pond and build our big pile mound behind the pond to build the waterfall on. But again, you have a flat piece of property with a big pond, big bump waterfall there, you know, coming around. It looks the worst when you first build it, okay? But if you think about it a little bit and you do some really nice landscaping around it, you know, that all then comes together and will start to look a lot nicer. But I mean, you get my idea, right? Building a big waterfall on a flat piece of ground sometimes can look a bit awkward. If you have a nice hill, that waterfall can set right in it. We just have to make sure that we can retain that dirt back and that hill from coming into the pond, all right? And, you know, building on a slope, a nice stream bed, a little river, stream, can be awesome, can be a really nice feature. So again, you know, it's essential that we have a slope to build a stream. All right, we can't build a stream on flat ground. The water's not going to run properly on a flat, level piece of ground. We need to come down, and to have a couple little drops in that stream give it a lot of effect and character as well. Okay, so you know, be creative. Think about your project and you know the design, and you know, keep all this stuff in mind that I'm kind of teaching you here, and you know, hopefully it could all work out for you and it'll look beautiful. All right. Okay, so yeah, great. Thanks for watching. I hope you know, it got you some ideas and taught you a little bit on how to do that. You know, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you're into koi ponds and waterfalls, water gardens, all that. I appreciate the support. And I have a ton of videos here on this channel with some really cool stuff to help you guys out with all different topics and things about ponds. So check it out. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again soon. Have a great day. Bye.